course, our third presenter of the evening is Andy Olson. He is the co-founder and CEO of Inherent Biosciences. Andy, go ahead and share your slides. We are eagerly awaiting our last pitch. Like I said, 3 excellent companies this evening.
Thank you, Katie. I'm Andy Olson, co-founder and CEO of Inherent Biosciences, and we're an emerging molecular diagnostics company. We're solving a problem with infertility. Why infertility? Well, there's an increasing trend as couples wait longer to have children, and 1 in 8 couples experience infertility, so the chances are that you probably know someone who has experienced infertility and infertility treatment. And if you do, then you know that the focus is primarily on the female partner. Yet 50% of infertility is due to male factors. And the current semen analysis, looking at sperm with a microscope, counting how many are there and counting how many are swimming, is a poor diagnostic test with about 15% sensitivity. This leads to a lot of unexplained infertility. 65% of couples drop out of treatment due to the emotional toll. And there's 3 times more divorces, which is just tragic. So we need a better test that identifies male infertility and guides treatment to a procedure that's going to give the highest likelihood of success. We can increase the diagnostic power of semen analysis by analyzing sperm DNA, and specifically epigenetics. Epi is a prefix that means on, and genetics is the DNA. You can see in this cartoon over here, on the DNA are biochemical modifiers that turn on and off gene expression. One of those is DNA methylation. The DNA is packed tightly into the head of the sperm, and so what we do is break open the sperm, isolate the DNA. We convert the DNA where there's an absence of these methylation marks, and then we do what's called methyl-seq, and it's next generation sequencing. And that allows us to then report results based on the methylation of the DNA that correlates with the condition of infertility. So how do we know that this works? Well, 2 of our clinical and scientific advisors have published papers in this area showing that DNA methylation predicts male fertility status and embryo quality, and also things like therapeutic responsiveness based on methylation of follicle stimulating hormone, also known as FSH, one of the standard treatments. We have very robust IP in this area with worldwide exclusive licenses to the IP, with broad claims for methods of using DNA methylation in this way and the machine learning and artificial intelligence algorithms behind it. Over the past 2 years, we've completed validation studies showing that our DNA methylation biomarker is enriched in infertile patients compared to the fertile donors. And you see in this figure of box plots an increase in epigenetic biomarker enrichment in the infertile population of a prospective study, as well as our retrospective study, compared to the fertile sperm donors. And most importantly, we see our biomarker is more prevalent in men with normal semen analysis. So in a study of 112 couples going through infertility care, 90 men were considered fertile based on the standard semen analysis. And we found our DNA methylation biomarker identifying male factor infertility in 36% of these men. So we've developed an epigenetic sperm quality test with a positive predictive value of 97% and a negative predictive value of 96%. We did these studies with partners at the University of Utah and Baylor College of Medicine, along with our clinical laboratory partners, one of which is Predictive Technology Group. We signed a strategic collaboration and commercialization agreement with them, where it's a revenue sharing agreement. They have a female infertility test, and so our male infertility test goes very nicely with that and gives us a channel partner directly into this market. In addition, we have developed an at-home collection kit so that men can receive a specimen collection kit at their home, collect the specimen at home in the privacy of their own home, and then send it into the laboratory for analysis. We have 3 ongoing IRB-approved studies with Donor Egg Bank USA, Eugen, Barcelona, the largest infertility clinic in Europe, and then Boston IVF, the largest infertility clinic in the US. There's other indications in our pipeline, but we're focused right now completely on fertility. And we foresee in the market significant opportunities for exits. In the direct-to-consumer market, there's a number of companies focused on male reproductive health. And we think that the opportunity will actually be driven more, it'll drive more value in the market with the clinical use and going to these fertility clinics, the laboratories that serve clinics that are doing fertility testing, and then also the pharmaceutical companies that provide reproductive medicines like Ferring Pharmaceuticals and EMD Serrano. And then there's also the opportunity for an IPO. We anticipate the first exit opportunity as early as next year, the latter part of next year, before we internalize laboratory operations. And then another exit opportunity potentially after we launch our second test using this epigenetic information. We have the team to do this. So my co-founder and I have prior startup experience. I've led commercialization in 5 biotech startups with 4 exits. And Kristen Brogard, my co-founder, has a PhD in the field of epigenetics. We've assembled a team of talented technologists, clinicians, former operators in this space, and pioneering scientists. And our team uses what's inherent in the biology to remove the guesswork and the trial and error in infertility care. We're looking for feedback, potential partners to bring this technology to the market, and also potential clinical pilots. Thanks, and I look forward to your questions.
Andy, thank you so much. Oh, I love the emojis. Here they come. You know, this is exciting because, as you mentioned, there are many, many couples out there that are struggling with this infertility issue. And as you mentioned, most of that, emphasis is on the female, the mom to be, as opposed to the dad to be. So this is very exciting because clearly there is a need for something like this. One of our audience members actually stole one of my questions, so we'll start with that. Dr. Kona says, epigenetics with AI is very exciting and has broad application. Have you thought about broadening this to other diseases with significant epigenetic impact, like obesity, psychiatric illnesses, etc.?
Yes, absolutely. Thanks for the question. So, I mean, there's a clue that we found when there appears to be a gender disparity in the disease. That typically is an indication that there's something going on epigenetically. So, for example, with autism, it's mostly in boys. And with autoimmune disease, things like rheumatoid arthritis, my mother suffers from rheumatoid arthritis, and it's mostly in women. And so that's a clue that there's possibly something going on epigenetically in there. We've licensed biomarkers from some of our academic collaborators in the area of autism and autoimmune disease in particular. And absolutely, obesity, there's a number of things in the pipeline with our academic collaborators that we're focused on potentially in the future applying this technology as well.
Well, and a follow-up question to that, are you planning or thinking about separating the company to focus on fertility while pursuing testing for these other indications?
Yeah, so one of the things we've thought about is setting up subsidiaries underneath our corporate entity and doing that and either licensing things out to them or to partners that can fully commercialize it, or setting up a focused team in a subsidiary to commercialize the technology. We think some of these areas are very attractive and we're leaning more towards setting up teams with some of them. Others, it makes more sense to out-license the technology and let others do that commercialization and then either generate royalty revenue or a revenue sharing kind of arrangement.
Sure. So I have a couple more clinically related questions. You mentioned you have a large upcoming clinical study. Can you tell us more about that?
Yeah, so we just got the data actually for 1,500 blinded samples where we're doing the analysis on those. and then comparing it to the outcomes. And this has actual live birth outcomes. And that's what a lot of the clinicians that we've been working with have asked for is, how does this translate into live birth outcomes? So we're just analyzing that data. We intend to publish that here hopefully in the journal Fertility and Sterility, which is the primary journal that the reproductive endocrinologists and reproductive urologists read. So that's a big pivotal study that we're getting out. And then we have these 3 IRB approved studies that are focused on sperm that failed egg donor cycles. And these are egg donor cycles where we know that the eggs are good. They come from lots that have had success in other cycles with other sperm. And so now we're getting the sperm that failed those egg donor cycles with a built-in control. It's going to be phenomenal data, really controlling for the female factor and identifying that this is real and that there's an issue with the male factor that can be attributed to the failure of that cycle. And you can identify that up front, then you can avoid a lot of the unnecessary treatment that's not effective and go to the procedures that are effective when there's a male factor issue.
Certainly. Speaking of that, you talked about the ability to predict, utilizing this information and data to predict whether FSH was going to be a useful treatment or not. I'm assuming that's what you're talking about with other types of procedures and/or treatments. Is that true?
Yeah, so a lot of the treatments start off with ovulation induction, hormone shots for the female to induce additional ovulation, and then so timed intercourse using that ovulation induction, and then also artificial insemination, or also known as IUI, intrauterine insemination. So what we've shown in our preliminary data is that we can predict success or failure of those based on the sperm epigenetics, and then also potentially miscarriage. So you can often get a pregnancy, but it's really, can we keep the couple pregnant and not have a miscarriage? And so we're seeing that we can be predictive of miscarriage as well. So getting to that live birth outcome that all the couples and the physicians want to achieve.
That's fantastic. Again, I know a struggle for many companies. We really appreciate you being here tonight, Andy, and telling us all about Inherent Biosciences. I can definitely see many applications of this, not only in infertility, but outside of that. So very exciting.